Europe and Russia, Lesson 15, Population Dilemmas in Europe. Introduction. You're driving in southern Italy on a hot summer day. As you wind your way through dry brown hills, you decide to stop for a cold drink. You park your car in the tiny village of Cersosimo. As you wander through the old narrow streets, you notice something strange. Cersosimo is filled with elderly people. In fact, for every 3 faces you see, 2 of them are at least 65 years old. Looking in at the village school, you see that children of all ages are studying together in just one small class. Finally, you find a shop where you can buy your cold drink. You ask the shopkeeper why there are so many elderly people and so few children in Cersosimo. He replies that families here just aren't having children these days. A few years ago, the village tried to change this trend by offering to pay mothers a birth bonus for every baby born in Cersosimo. However, even with the birth bonus, little had changed, and villagers still preferred to have small families. The story of Cersosimo is the story of Italy, and according to geographers who do research in demography, it's also the story of Europe. Demography is the study of human populations and how they change over time. Demographers look at birth rates, death rates, and human migration. These measures help them keep track population trends or their general direction in which population numbers are moving, as well as their effects. In Europe, for example, they are examining the consequences of long-term low birth rates. So in this lesson, we're going to learn about population trends in Europe, and we're going to see some of the problems that are created by shrinking family sizes, and we're going to explore how European countries are attempting to address these problems. The essential question for this chapter is, how do population trends affect a country's future? These diagrams over on the side are called population pyramids. They show the makeup of a country's population by sex and age groups. Geographers use such diagrams to study population trends in a country. Notice how each pyramid has different shape. Keep these pyramids in mind as we try to answer the essential question, how do population trends affect a country's future? The geographic setting. Europe is one of the smallest continents in size, but approximately 10% of the world's people live there. This high population density may not hold steady much longer for 2 reasons. First, Europe has the oldest population of any continent. Second, it has the lowest birth rate, or number of births per 1,000 people of any continent. As a result, its population is on course to begin shrinking. The study of population trends focuses on 3 factors: births, deaths, and migration. Whether a population grows or shrinks depends on the trends of these 3 factors. Children are born every day in Europe, but the average number of babies born to each woman is low. This average number of births is called the total fertility rate, or TFR. In 2016, for example, the total fertility rate in Italy was less than 1.5 babies per woman. If the TFR remains this low, Italy's population will decline. To stop this trend, the TFR would need to rise to the replacement rate, or the rate at which enough babies are born to replace the people who die each year. In Italy and the rest of Europe, the replacement rate is just over 2 babies per woman. People also die every day in Europe, but they die at older ages than they used to. Over the past century, life expectancy, or the number of years a person can expect to live, has increased in Europe. In 2016, the average person in France could expect to live about 82 years. In 1900, life expectancy in France was only 45 years. Additionally, people move into and out of Europe every day. In the past, most migration was out of Europe as people left to escape wars and poverty. Today, more people are migrating into Europe than are leaving it. However, there still are not enough immigrants arriving to keep Europe's population stable. Geographers use pyramid-shaped graphs to study population. These graphs show the ages and sexes in a population, with the youngest age displayed at the bottom and the oldest at the top. The shape of a population pyramid reflects how a country's population is growing. A pyramid that is wide at the bottom shows rapid population growth, which means that more people are being born than dying each year. A pyramid with straight sides indicates slow population growth, with births and deaths nearly equal in that country. A pyramid that is narrow at the bottom reflects negative population growth, which means more people are dying each year than are being born. Population growth affects a country's dependency ratio. This ratio compares the number of people too young or old to work within the country's working age population. In Europe, most young people under the age of 16 do not work, and the age of retirement is 65 in many countries. Both groups depend on other people to support them. A low dependency ratio indicates that workers have few dependents to support. A high dependency ratio means just the opposite. There are lots of young or old people for workers to support. Later, you will see how Europe's high dependency ratio has posed problems for its economy. A population pyramid is made up of two back-to-back bar graphs. One shows the number of males in different age groups, and the other shows the number of females in different age groups. This top pyramid graph shows Europe's population in 2015. The second reveals how that makeup is likely to change by 2040. So it looks like we're going to have more people who are elderly, who are 80 years old or older, in 2040 than kids being born at the lowest age group of 0 to 4. Population change in Europe. In 1840, Queen Victoria of England married Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, a German prince. The royal couple had 9 children, and the family served as the model for other English families in that age. In those days, such large families were common in Europe, but as you've read, families of that size are now rare in Europe. In fact, Europe has gone from a growing population to one that is stable and likely to shrink in the 2020s. Before the 1750s, the population of Europe rose and fell over time. In bad years, plagues, famines, and wars killed huge numbers of people. In good years, there was enough food to support large families. Overall, there were slightly more births than deaths, keeping population growth low. In the 1750s, Europe entered a long period of accelerated population growth. Improvements in sanitation and healthcare caused death rates to decline, while food supplies increased, making it possible for the populations in Europe to grow quickly. After 1900, most Europeans moved from farms to cities. As a result, they no longer needed large families to help with the farming, and birth rates began to fall. As birth rates declined, population growth slowed, and from 1996 to 2001, Europe's total population shrunk. Demographers have identified several stages of population growth. The 4 major stages appear in the demographic transition model graphic in this section. A model is a simplified version of something complex that can be used to make predictions. According to this model, populations go through transitions or changes as a country develops economically. Here's our demographic transition model. It shows population change over time. The word transition, of course, means change, but there's no fixed time for each stage. Some countries may pass through all 4 stages as they develop, but others may not. So stage 1 is low population growth. All populations begin at this stage. In this stage, high birth rates and high death rates result in little population change. In stage 2, we have our rapid population growth. Birth rates remain high as economic development begins. However, death rates fall as food supplies increase and healthcare improves. The result is rapid growth. Stage 3 shows slow population growth. As the country improves, birth rates decline, the death rates stay low, and population growth begins to slow. And stage 4 is no or negative population growth. In developed countries, both birth rates and death rates drop to low levels. As a result, there is little or no population growth, and birth rates may eventually fall behind death rates, resulting in a shrinking population. The next bit, we're going to talk about 3 different dilemmas that we have for population and the responses that Europe has made to these dilemmas. Our first dilemma is a shrinking population. Between 2015 and 2060, Italy's population is expected to shrink from more than 59 million people to fewer than 53 million people. This dramatic plunge in population could have far-reaching effects on the country. Looking ahead, Italy might see empty schools, vacant apartments, and closed businesses. Causes of negative population growth. A country's total fertility rate, or TFR, is an important factor in determining its future population. Italy's TFR fell well below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman several decades ago, and as of 2016, it was 1.43. So on average, women used to be having about 2 kids throughout the entire country. And as of 4 years ago, on average, women were having less than 1.5 kids. Obviously, you can't have half a kid. Averages. And Italy's not alone. Across Europe, total fertility rates remain below the replacement rate. There are many reasons for Europe's low birth rates. More European women are delaying having children so that they can pursue their education and careers. Women who wait until they are older to start having babies tend to have fewer children. Moreover, access to family planning methods in Europe make it possible for women to control the number of children they have. Family finances also play a part in how many children people choose to have. The high cost of living in much of Europe makes people concerned about their ability to support a family. Because housing costs are expensive, young couples often need 2 incomes to buy a home. As a result, young women sometimes delay having children so that they can work and earn an income. Working couples who want children face the issue of childcare. In the past, mothers cared for their children at home. When both parents work, however, they need help caring for their children during the day. Quality childcare can be expensive and hard to find, discouraging couples from having large families. Many problems arise when populations shrink. Fewer children need fewer schools and teachers. Over time, declining enrollment likely leads to school closures and teachers losing their jobs. Other people who work with children may also find themselves out of work. For example, businesses geared toward children, such as toy stores and clothing stores, could go out of business. Declining population can have a serious effect on a country's economy. Babies grow up to be workers, so low birth rates can eventually lead to labor shortages. When businesses cannot find enough workers, they sometimes move to countries that offer a larger labor supply. This change could hurt Europe's economy. Negative growth also means fewer people available to serve in military forces. Consequently, European countries may lose some of their power and influence in the world. Responses to negative growth. Historically, large families have been part of Italy's culture. Despite this, many couples have decided against having lots of children. In 2003, the government attempted something new and began offering cash benefits. As of 2017, Italy provides at least 80 euros, or around $95, per month for the first 3 years of a child's life. It may seem strange to pay families for having babies. However, Italy is not the only country in Europe to offer a cash incentive for larger families. France, for example, provides monthly payments to families that have more than one child. Families with 3 or more children receive additional benefits depending on how much income they earn. Since 2000, the total fertility rate in Italy and France has risen slightly. However, Italy's population is projected to decline in the long term, whereas France's is expected to continue to grow slowly. Other countries offer government assistance to families to ensure that children have financial support. For example, in Sweden, the government provides allowances to families until a child reaches the age of 16 or finishes his or her education. The aim is to support parents in raising their children rather than paying them to have babies. European governments recognize that the difficulty of balancing work and family life discourages many couples from having children. Quality childcare is one prevalent issue. Another is job security. Working parents often want to take time off work to care for their children. Most European governments have responded to this desire with family-friendly policies to help working parents. For example, the European Union has set minimum standards that its 28 member states must follow with regard to maternity and paternity leave. Leave policies allow new parents to stay at home with the baby without losing their jobs and while still being paid. When their leave ends, the parent returns to work. Other policies include flexible work hours and the right to work part-time. Governments hope that policies like these will remove some of the barriers to having children and to staying in the workforce. That is all that we have for today. In our next video, we're going to talk about Dilemma 2, which is the aging population, and Dilemma 3, a declining workforce, and what the responses are to those. I will see you then.